Hey book nerds, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I thought that I would talk about the really specific niches in books that I love. So these are kind of like plot elements that are really specific, yet I've managed to crop up in multiple books that either I've read or I've got on my TBR, and I really like those concepts, so you'll understand once I get into the list. I'm also going to give examples for each of these. I'm not going to go into detail about the examples, I'm just going to mention the books, so if you want any more detail you can ask me, or just look up the book yourself. So let's start the list so you can understand what I mean. So the first example is probably the most broad, and that is horror books set at theme parks. So examples of this include Fantasticland by Mike Bockhoven, Dreamwoods by Patrick Lacey, and I've not read it yet, but Full Tilt by Neil Shusterman. So the reason I like horror books set at theme parks is because they tend to be very traditional horror books, in the sense that they're very much like horror movies in a book format, which is the kind of horror that I love. Like, the cheesier the better, the more over top the better. I don't want weird like existential horror. I prefer it grounded in, like, not necessarily reality, because I'm fine with supernatural elements, but I want it simple. And most of the theme park ones take the spirit of the theme park and run with it, and I just love it. They also really get me in the mood for summer, which is probably a very specific thing to me. But yeah, I like having books that I can read relating to holidays that aren't necessarily contemporaries. So the second one is also pretty broad, and that is thrillers based around reality TV shows. So examples of this include Dead Famous by Ben Elton, Chartthrob by Ben Elton, Cut Reality by Zach Hacker. I've only read the first one of these, but I've got the other two on my TBR. So the reason I like these is because it's kind of a brilliant setting for a thriller. You have the kind of closed room concept built in, because they're on a reality TV show and so they can't escape. There's also the added element of them being filmed all the time, so how do you get around the fact that the cameras are on them and yet they somehow also committed a murder? And I think as well, I have an interest in reality TV that is very similar to my interest in thrillers, in that I enjoy understanding human behaviour. So I read thrillers because I like the exploration of why people kill and what can drive them to do that, and how they might try and cover up those crimes. And reality TV, they're a lot lighter because it doesn't usually involve murder, is very similar. I enjoy watching reality TV because I like seeing why people make the decisions they make. And I know reality TV is very fake, but I think even within the fakeness, the human behaviour is still real. You can still tell something, even if you think that they're completely acting. But yeah, so I think thrillers based around reality TV shows combine those two things really good, and that's why I enjoy them. Now we get onto the specific examples, and for this one I can't give any book examples because it is a spoiler, but I do have them, so if you want to know them, I don't know why you'd want to know them if you don't want to be surprised by the book, I guess, but feel free to contact me and I will happily tell you. But this is in thrillers when the main character is investigating the disappearance or death of someone in their life who was their friend, and then they discover that said friend was secretly plotting to kill the main character. This is very specific. I read 2 books with this exact premise and I loved them both because of that premise. So this is what I mean about the list getting more specific. So I just really like this, I guess because I haven't seen it done that often, and I think it's just a really nice gut-wrenching moment for the main character to realise that this person that they've been devoted all this time to trying to find out what happened to them, that they've been missing, that they've been feeling guilty about probably for some reason, was trying to kill them and they had no idea. And I think that's just like a nice little twist that adds a lot of darkness to a book, and as well it puts the emphasis on the friendship itself, which you know I like in my thrillers. So yeah. So the next one is another thriller one, and this is when the characters involved, when they were children, one of them died, and then one of the group got convicted for their murder as a child, and now they're adults, and usually the person who was convicted has just come out of prison and is trying to contact the person who wasn't convicted. So yeah, it's again very specific concepts. I've got a whole, actually like way too many to mention thrillers with this very specific concept, but two I am going to mention are The Flower Girls by Alice Clark Platts and The Wicked Girls by Alex Marwood. Have not read the first one yet. I've read this one and I really recommend it. I recommend all of Alex Marwood's books. This was it's not my favourite of her books, but it's pretty good, and it's a very well written thriller. So yeah, those are the two examples that I'm going to mention, but there are a ton of thrillers with this concept. I'm not really sure why I like this. Again, I think it's because it tends to put the focus on the friendship between two characters, and I find it fascinating when the children in the story are convicted of murder, and usually there's like this big tragic element as well, which you don't tend to get in a lot of thrillers, but there's a kind of the sorrow, particularly because the children usually cause the death accidentally. So yeah, I think it can combine a lot of the elements that I enjoy as well as some I don't see a lot of the time. And the final really specific niche that I seem to be attracted to, I haven't actually read any books with this concept, but I realised I have a ton on my TBR with this concept, and I thought it was just really overly specific. And that is when a character has received the organ transplant / donation from a serial killer. So examples include Dark Heart by Catherine Lee and The Darkness Within by Lisa Stone. I've also got a couple of horrors and short stories. I have definitely read a couple of short stories with this specific premise, and seen a couple of movies as well. It's not really a particularly unique premise. Usually it's more in horror with the supernatural elements, but I think the reason I'm so intrigued with thrillers is because I know the supernatural elements won't be there, and so I'm intrigued to see whether they go the route of trying to scientifically explain why a character who has inherited the organ from a serial killer would start to behave like a serial killer, or whether they'll just kind of hand wave it and just do it in a kind of generic, oh well, they have evil body parts way. But yeah, unlike the others on this list, I guess I could actually read these books and find out I don't enjoy them, but I thought I'd mention it anyway because it's really quite frequent on my TBR, to the point where I'm slightly concerned. Yeah, so those are 5 of my incredibly specific niches and books that I enjoy or am attracted to. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, it helps me out massively. Let me know what some of your incredibly specific niches are. Let me know if you've encountered any books with these tropes or plot elements. If you have any recommendations for me, I'd really appreciate that. Obviously, if you recommend them for the thriller, the one where I couldn't give any examples, maybe don't say why you're recommending it, but to be honest, I don't personally mind. If you specifically spoil it in that way only, please don't spoil anything else. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.